Hey everybody, welcome to the executive producer commentary for Hostel. I'm joined by Boaz Yakin.
Hi there.
Scotty Spiegel.
Hi there.
And Quentin Tarantino.
Hi there.
Hi there. That sounded so professional.
She sounded really gay.
Yeah.
I was going for gay.
Yeah, I was a professionally gay.
Oh man, I can't believe it.
All right, so Raw Nerve. There's the logo.
There you go.
So so Boaz and Scotty, we all do Raw Nerve together. That is our company.
That's a horror company that we started to make movies just like this.
Quentin Tarantino presents the fucking
Voila.
coolest
Voila.
opening credit on a movie.
Quentin Tarantino, a company that created to make movies just like this.
Quentin Tarantino.
Raw Nerve and Quentin Tarantino working together as companies.
Yes, two companies.
And Derek too.
Bully, I say. So these opening titles we shot, just to get everyone in the mood, something nice and creepy to start it out. And that was one of the things people said was like, are you concerned that it's not scary from the opening minutes? That's why I put this in, but I also I like the idea of going on the journey with the guys, that we get seduced along with the guys. That's why it starts off all fun.
No, that's one of the things I like so much about the movie. It was one of the things I was even saying in the press junket about one thing that's so cool about the film is, as opposed to a lot of horror films or just a lot of Hollywood movies the last 20 years, this is a genuine story. It unfolds. You don't know everything that's going to happen from the first 10 or 15 minutes, as opposed to what I call situation movies, where they set up a situation in the first 15 minutes and then try to just live up to it.
Right.
Here, this is always just kind of unfolding, and it's just, getting worse and worse and deeper as it goes.
Thank you. And what tortures me is that it's like, I wish people knew nothing about the movie when they went to go see it. All right, Bully, they're the executive producers.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Well, I think on some level that the structure of it works to its advantage in that even if people know something about it, what they're really doing for the first part of the film is getting to know the characters. And whatever you know, once the characters start working, played really well by Derek Richardson and the other guys, you end up caring about them even if you know what's going to happen and you're locked into the story.
And it even becomes like this, like Titanic, this like other shoe that is about to drop.
Exactly.
And like, oh wait a minute, I actually care about these guys. I paid to see a torture horror film, but now maybe I'm not so sure I want to see that now.
Exactly.
Well, Quentin...
There's Roman Polanski.
Oh, the Roman Polanski line.
Yeah, that's the thing that didn't make the cut. One of my contributions.
Well, Quentin had a great line that was in the
cool,
red light district, which we were put on the DVD, where they're walking and he's like, dude, I think you saw Roman Polanski.
I like that. That is so cool.
And then you called me from Prague.
But yeah, and then we were shooting, and I was like, dude, we just fucking saw Roman Polanski. We actually saw Roman Polanski, because he was there doing scoring for Oliver Twist. And it was awesome. But didn't you thought you saw him in New York or something?
Yeah, I have this weird mythical experience where I was at the museum and I was looking for an exhibit, and Roman Polanski walked up to me and told me to go see a different exhibit. And I was like, that's Roman Polanski. What's he doing? He can't be here.
Yeah, he can't be in New York.
But and everyone I asked was like, no, he never sneaks over the border. And I was like, but I saw him. So I don't know.
But that's like a director's fantasy.
I had a friend.
I saw ghosts.
I actually had a friend bump into Roman Polanski.
Oh, really?
That's where I got the idea.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, no.
When I was at Video Archives, a guy I knew went to Amsterdam. Like, man, I saw Roman Polanski there.
Well, that was just so cool about honestly having like three like awesome, writer directors as your producers. Was everybody like you had said like, I remember Quentin saying like, I've got this line of dialogue and I've never been able to use it in a movie, so maybe it could fit in here. And now that actually didn't make the cut,
But we've talked about it I feel like it has, now that we've talked about it for 20 minutes.
Maybe we should talk about the things
as
that
opposed to anything that's going on screen.
that's actually in the movie. No, I remember it was Quentin. It was you who like totally
Dan
kicked
Frisch,
me.
producer.
Dan Frisch, co-producer, is Fanny Pac-Man. You were totally, kicked me in the ass and were really like excited when I first told you the idea for Hostel. We were at your house.
Oh yeah, no, it was like really, it was that's one of my favorite parts.
Yeah, Thor having
I
sex.
love that.
Which is based on truth,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. I was in Iceland with my friend Isi, and We're like, where did Aethor go? And the next thing you know, we get this text message on his phone, and Aethor's in the bathroom, and he's having sex with a girl, and he's like texting us and sending pictures of it. And I thought, this guy's a genius. I got to put that in a movie. That's why, look, it said inspired by true events. That's the true event.
That's a true event.
This definitely this part with Derek Richardson's character, some of the Eli dialogue, basically where there was such an emphasis on the word gay in the dialogue, and there were so many like taunts that way. I asked Eli, I said, well, what if one of the guys really is gay, actually, because the Derek Richardson character was presented as really sensitive, but not quite gay, and just the dialogue gave rise to that idea. It kind of came out of the way it was written.
Well, that was like a great idea that Boaz had. We thought it would really help with kind of the misdirect too, of making, you had said like, yeah, if you do that, there's some subplot where maybe he's gay that'll make everyone really believe he's the main character,
Right.
and it's gonna get resolved instead of just having him get fucking killed off at minute 36.
Well, actually, that's actually one of my favorite parts about the movie. All right, is the moment that he has with the Dutch businessman. And when he grabs his leg, and you realize, oh my God, this guy is deeper than what we thought. He's just not a knucklehead on, in Amsterdam chasing pussy and stuff. It's like, he's got his own little problems that he's dealing with. He's trying to fit in and all that. And that whole speech that the Dutch guy gives afterwards, if I was you, your age, at that time, I would have done the exact same thing. It's one of my favorite parts of the whole script.
Well, that's the horror of it. Is the only guy who's sympathetic to Derek is the guy who ends up horribly killing him.
Well, yeah, you realize he's
Yeah, there's no bonding moment when they actually are together in the torture room.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, he says, and that's what I thought was a really cool thing that Boaz was like talking about, the connection with the food, and then we talked about, okay, that he has a connection with the food, and that's why he wants to get to know Josh, to have the connection with him before he tortures him. And it's like, does this guy have some weird repressed issues that he's acting out on these guys? He drills him.
Now, Eli, was this shot in Amsterdam? Where was this shot?
This was on a stage in Prague. The design of this came from a brothel in Tokyo that we saw photographs, like, that's one of the things I love about the Japanese. It's like, that's their brothel.
Yeah, right.
And so we shot this on a stage. Everything that was Amsterdam, we actually shot in Prague. We didn't really have the money to go over to Amsterdam, and we felt that there were enough locations that we could keep it contained and kind of fake it for Amsterdam.
You do a great job as far as that's concerned. I've been to Amsterdam a bunch of times, and I didn't per se know you didn't shoot in Amsterdam.
You know what they call Sneaper in Amsterdam? Sneaper Royale. No, thank you. I appreciate that. But no, I would like to say thanks to Quentin. Honestly, you were the one. I told you the idea. I was like at these crossroads with a bunch of different projects, and I really wasn't sure what to do next. And you were like, you've got to do this movie with raw nerve. Do it with Boaz and Scotty. Make it low budget. Like, this could be your Mike movie.
Yeah, well, it was funny because when you were telling me the story, he had come over. It was like a Saturday afternoon. We were swimming in my pool, and Eli was he was his flavor of the month. He'd just done Cabin Fever, so all the studios were talking to him about, remaking this or remaking that. And he's describing to me some of these things, and, it's like, but what you're a writer-director. Don't you have something that you want to do? And then he proceeded to describe this exact story. And after he did, it was like, oh my God, don't waste your fucking time on that shit. If you do that shit, I wouldn't even see it. All right,
yeah.
This is what you got to do. You got to make your McCain movie.
Yeah, no, and that's what affected me. I thought, man, if I did that other movie and Quentin wouldn't see it, that would really suck. And I'm like, I can't let it's weird. It's like it was like you were so supportive of Cabin Fever and Peter Jackson and these guys. Like, you start to get those, in a weird way, you get like the sophomore jitters. I'm like, God, I don't want to let these guys down. Like, they really like my film, but you get nervous. But then I think, you know what? I can't worry about that. I can't let myself down. Like, that's what you got to focus on, and then everything else will fall into place.
Well, it was just the idea that you're a writer director. You shouldn't be just going out and taking assignments as your second film. Your second film is even more important than your first film if your first film's good.
Right.
So, win or lose, up or down, it's got to be, I think.
It's got to be your own thing.
It's got to be your own thing.
No, you're so right about that. And I want to thank all you guys for that, for really helping keep me on track, because I feel like this is the perfect second movie to do. I feel like it was contained enough, but I got to do a lot more things. It's a more ambitious film than Cabin Fever, but it was just so helpful having you guys, there with the support. I mean, I remember right as soon as I was done with the first draft of the script, I think before I showed it to Quentin, I showed it to Boaz and Scotty, and we went to Scotty's house, and that's where you were like, oh, Scotty was like, you gotta run the girls over, and I was like, no, he shouldn't do that. And Boaz, you had talked about like the thing with Josh and the thing with the kids.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you a question based on what you're talking about. How did you feel the support was from, like, people in the business to do something this hardcore as your second film, like agents and people like that?
It's weird. I think that they felt like if it cost a certain number, they were supportive because they figured, well, Cabin Fever did $70 million on DVD, so if this movie, even if it doesn't come out in theaters, like, they just do calculations. I mean,
was there not pressure to do like kind of a more commercial comedy?
Oh yeah, I mean, you'd hear that like certainly from agents and managers, and they say, well, yeah, it's. And I heard from other horror directors were saying, don't do a horror movie, don't do 2 horror movies, or you'll become a horror guy. And you think,
but that's what's cool about you. You want to be the horror guy.
That's exactly
what makes you different from all of those guys.
I was like, that's exactly it. Like that's my dream to be the horror guy.
This isn't a horror movie. This is a thriller.
Yeah, oh God, don't get me started on that.
Supernatural thriller.
Supernatural thriller. Yeah, it's a backpack thriller.
If it was 95, they'd be calling this a science fiction film.
Yeah, so sad.
Science fiction is good. People like that word.
Yeah, exactly.
Sci-fi's good.
Let's call it a thriller now. Now, no, I don't care. Just call it a horror movie. Call it a horror movie.
Is that horrible?
No, that was makeup. That was makeup. This guy Lubomir who played Alex is actually a really good-looking guy, and he came out of the makeup trailer, and I was like, no, man, he should look like a sewer rat. So we gave him like, the way we lit him, and we put all those zits on him, and made his hair look really greasy, and I was like, make him have some horrible thing on his lips, so he smokes the pipe, and it's like, I don't want to smoke that.
For the people watching this, I just want to say that it's really not fun making movies with all kinds of naked girls and beautiful chicks. It seems like fun, but actually it's torture.
How did you cast those girls in just that shot?
Oh, that shot. Okay, well, that
just
was
those digital camera shots. They had to be cast. Were they cast by you?
Yeah, we had to. Unfortunately,
were you there on the day that those shots were done?
Actually, I took every single one of these photographs myself because we had we had to have a casting session. We saw, I think, 75 naked girls in 2 days, and it was exhausting. It was very, very difficult work.
That's what I've been trying to say.
Yeah, it's tough, and I'm sorry. I don't know why you'd bring that up and remind me of that trauma, Boaz.
Because I'm trying to keep it real here. I'm trying to de-glamorize the business.
Yeah, so we had to cast those girls, and then we did a photo shoot, and the first day we did that was actually before we started shooting, we did that photo shoot with those girls. And we had a photographer who was taking photos that looked like they were for a magazine. And I was like, these gotta look like some cheap digital camera photos, and with a flash. And I just took a bunch of them. And those are the ones we wound up using. And that was when we were shooting. We were in Chris Briggs' apartment in Prague, and it was so hot. It was like 100 degrees. And so I peeled off my sweatshirt, and I was just wearing a wife beater. And these 3 naked girls were on the bed, and they start talking in Slovakian, going, Gorilka, and everyone in the crew starts laughing. And I was like, what? And I asked my AD, I was like, what does Gorilka mean? And he just starts goes, it means gorilla. And they were making fun of my chest hair because they said I look like a Gorilka.
Yeah, because Eli's even hairier than Robin Williams.
Oh, thank you. Oh,
So Robin Williams and Fisher King, that ain't nothing to swimming with Eli. I had the pool guy come out, and I had to get a new filter when Eli swims in my pool.
Oh, God. Oh, good Lord.
By the way, these are green screen shots. These are brilliantly executed green screen shots that this was shot on a set,
this was all shot on a stage. Yeah, and we green screened that, and Bob Kurtzman at Precinct 13 comped in those backgrounds. We shot the plates, and I love it. They even did the reflection in the glass and everything.
That's cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, look,
I really did not know that.
You see the reflection of Aether. This was all shot on a stage.
Bob Kurtzman did that?
Bob Kurtzman at Precinct 13.
Sometimes I think it's great using the technology to create effects that people don't notice as opposed to the ones that people do. And there's a lot of that in this movie.
There are a lot of CG shots. My whole thing was you shouldn't notice anything. I don't want people to I want people to be in the story. Don't. And that's what George Folsey says about his editing. Is if people tell me it was a well-edited movie, then I haven't done my job because you should just be into the story. Getting back to my chest hair, I mean, it's not all over my back and stuff.
No,
it's not.
Roth. I'm just talking about.
I don't want people to think you were like swimming with King Kong or Mighty Joe Young in your pool. It wasn't that bad.
Well, the chest area is similar.
Yeah, no, it was like.
You're the one that said they were calling you Gorilka.
No, I mean, from the moment that I said that kind of became my nickname on set. Like the crew would be like,
try new Gorilka.
We have good. What's that?
I'm sorry, it sounds like a product. Try new Gorilka.
So, tell us about this cool actor
Jan Vlasak, who played the Dutch businessman. You know, he's one of the best actors in the Czech Republic. Like we called him Hannibal Lecter. I think the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was the other working title while we were shooting. But he came in red, and he just had these piercing, steely eyes. And I remember when we were looking at actors to play this part. There were different actors. People had suggested a number of kind of famous people, and we had talked a lot about, the studio was saying, well, should you get a big star to play the Dutch businessman? That's your main bad guy. And I remember, Quentin, you were like, man, there's so many great, like, regional actors. Like, what if you got someone who's just, like, the best actor from Prague to play that? And that way people didn't know he was the bad guy. They didn't see it coming. And this guy came in, and we all agreed that would be kind of the best way to go. And this guy came in an audition, and he was just terrifying. He doesn't speak a word of English. He speaks Czech. He's a Shakespearean actor. He's an amazing, amazing actor, and said that he would learn the English phonetically, and he did, and he completely got the inflections and the subtlety.
Yeah, I find it really hard to believe that he did that all phonetically, to say the truth.
I find it really hard to believe that Shakespeare was Czechoslovakian.
It is hard to believe. Czech beer, they called him.
Well, it was funny. It was funny because, like, there was talk about Rutger Hauer. There was talk about a few people.
Yeah, like Sting. All these names were thrown up.
And the thing is, it was like actually all the people would have given really good performances. Actually, I could see Rutger Hauer doing a very good job in this movie. But if it was actually somebody, a foreign actor that we've never seen before, it was just going to be more scary. It'd be more real, more scary. You just buy into it even more. Not seeing a star doing a turn.
Yeah, no, and that's what was really cool is that. In shooting the scenes with him and Derek Richardson, the torture scene, I mean, both of them were so good that, with an actor like Jan, I mean, there's very little direction. You just kind of sit back and let him do his thing. He was really cool. I like Sting was that was one of the names that got thrown out. I mean, I think Rutger Hauer was the guy we were really kind of thinking about. But, it's just one of those things where you're in Prague and it's low budget. And, we thought, God, let's get this guy. I think he could really, and he rarely does movies. He mostly does theater. This cab driver who we have next was completely insane. He couldn't drive, and he actually did most of the scene staring at his lines. He had no teeth, and
he looks rough and toothless.
He's actually
a little nod.
Bully, a little nod to George Folsey.
Got it.
He is rough.
I'm sorry.
And toothless.
Oh, brother. Oh, man. But he was great. What a great find, huh? It just lends that credibility to the whole proceedings where you just feel definitely a fish out of water.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that's one of the things. There's no point in going to a country like this and then, like, bringing a bunch of Hollywood actors with you. You bring the ones that you're supposed to bring.
Yeah.
But just even the fact that Eitor Gudnason, all right, is really Icelandic, and he's obviously genuinely foreign, all right, just adds to the reality of the whole proceedings. Exactly. But everybody, you see, every shopkeeper needs to be somebody from that area.
Yeah, this was actually
awesome shot.
It's actually shot at Epcot Center.
Yeah,
it's really not really Europe.
It does look somehow fanciful.
Well, I couldn't believe it when I saw this. It's like, I remember I finished the script. We must have wrote it in about probably 2.5 or 3 weeks, and then the next day I got on a plane to go to Prague, and the first place they took me was this village. And I was like, you have to be kidding me. This is exactly what I wrote. And this is an old monastery. We visited probably about 6 or 7 monasteries, and then we found this one, and we could just dress it however we wanted. And this was really cool. That Quentin, that you let us use this clip of Pulp Fiction.
That was cool. That's funny.
It's just so funny to hear him give this, we're trying to find what moment do we use.
Right.
And then this speech was like, just like hearing that.
He sounds like the cab driver.
Yeah, exactly. And what was so funny was when I showed like a cut of the movie to the crew, and like after that moment in the U.S. audiences like brings the house down. But then in Prague, like that was like, people were just watching it.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Oh.
Well, it's Pulp Fiction on TV. What's so big about
like
that?
The critics are like, oh, it's
What
Pulp
else
Fiction.
is new, yeah?
But that came from my brother Gabe was traveling, and he walked into a hostel, and he said it was like, I think it was in London, either London or France, where he walked in and the whole lobby was sitting around watching Pulp Fiction. He got there at like midnight, and it was like everyone in the hostel was gathered around this TV watching it.
That's too cool. That's really cool.
And that was like one of his traveling memories. Like also like Chris Briggs walked into a room and there was a couple having sex. and there was another dude in the room, and they were all supposed to be sharing it. And he was like, and the guy was like, no, it's all right, man. They're so fucked up. Don't worry about it. And then he tried to have a conversation. The guy was like, so, where are you going? Where are you traveling? And Chris like had to try and play it cool, like he wasn't completely just trying not to stare at these people fucking. He was like, Amsterdam, I think, Antwerp. Like he's just trying to be cool about it.
Well, it's funny when you told the story about like going to the hostel and people watching Pulp Fiction. I think that's kind of a thing. As far as like when you're young and you have friends that travel to Europe, some sort of pop culture thing when you go to Europe. A friend of mine just told me about being in Paris, and he was like, had never been to Paris before, and he was with a bunch of druggy guys, and they all walked into a place, and there was this giant poster of Dress to Kill.
Yeah, no, it's like I remember
over the couch.
Like the first time I went to Iceland in '91, like the Doors had come out here in like February, and then I went to Iceland in July, and it was like just coming out over there. So just after like Doors mania had died down here, I went over there, and it was like everywhere. They had the Jim Morrison posters.
Well, I remember going to Amsterdam and walking into a hash bar, and there was a poster for Say Anything in the hash bar.
Right.
And I remember walking down the red light district, and some chick had a poster for Born on the 4th of July.
Like in her room.
In her room.
Like that's going to get you in the mood.
It's gonna get you.
It just seems like of all the Tom Cruise posters to put up, Born on the 4th of July wouldn't be the top of an Amsterdam whores. Red light window drive-in thing.
Well, maybe she wanted to show that she wasn't just going to put the cocktail poster up with the rest of them.
She was showing she was deeper.
She liked the sophisticated.
That could have ended up with mixed results.
Cocktail. Oh, would
All
ya?
right. Oh, look at these lasses here. My goodness.
And where'd you
I
find these
think
gorgeous
that
gals?
the dialogue that Eli came up with here is actually really good in terms of just giving you the sense of all these people from different cultures kind of not quite gelling, and some of them gelling, and the real sense of the Americans not fitting in, whereas Europeans can get along much more easily.
Exactly,
Yeah,
like
like we see,
Hostel
like,
or the
it-
song.
They'll
I think
speak-
that's
Yeah.
kind of even though Eli doesn't push it that much, that's the subtext of the movie, and it comes across pretty well. Makes it definitely a little more interesting than your usual guys on a road trip movie.
Especially with Derek Richardson's character, who's just so obviously uncomfortable in his own skin that he can't feel comfortable or down in any. I mean, he would be that way in America.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
here it's just exemplified.
It gets exacerbated. Yeah, those girls. I mean, we auditioned a lot of girls, and I'd say probably out of the 400 girls that came in, nobody came close to Barbara in terms of the performance. That she came in and she was like a young Monica
Explain
Bellucci.
which one's Barbara.
The brunette Natalia. Natalia. Yes. And
I know. I was saying explain
I know,
to
I know,
the.
you're right. I'm sorry. I got that. I'm like
To all of our friends at home,
But Quentin,
all right,
you know
in
her. Yeah,
TV
there's
land.
Barbara. Our friends in TV land. Thank you. Sorry.
Is that what Red Skelton used to
Director
say?
getting. Sorry, you got 4 directors in a room. I'm
Carol
going to
Burnett,
get some
all my friends
direction.
in TV land.
So yeah, Barbara came in to read for Natalia, and nobody came close to her. She was just, she had looked like a young Monica Bellucci, but she had that European beauty of like Maria Schneider or like Emmanuel Bayard, where it's like that otherworldly European goddess beauty. And when her performance, she was so scary. She could be just disturbing, but like the way she looks here is that's how she normally looks. Like that's her with very little makeup on. But whereas later, we put all that drug addict makeup on her. And then Yana came in. Yana had never acted before. She was a model. And but I loved the way she looked, and she was very, very comfortable on camera, and just kind of had this, for her, it was great because we wrote roles where they could speak broken English. They didn't have to speak perfect English. And I know that most of the heavy lifting, you really need, Natalia has really the heavy dramatic stuff. But I thought they did a fine job. And look, there was really cool of them to do the nudity, because that's not easy to find girls that can act, that'll put themselves out there like that. Like the girls from the camera, there are a lot of, there's lots of different agencies. It was not hard to find girls that would be naked, but find girls that would sort of do the nudity and
Be naked and be good actors.
Really give
Deliver
great
a
actors,
performance,
deliver
yeah.
a performance.
But it is. But having said that, though, it is different in Europe, isn't it?
So much different in Europe.
Explain that.
In America, what I've noticed, anyways, is that ever since American Pie, with the internet, like Shannon Elizabeth basically got known as the naked girl from American Pie. And it kind of hurt her for a while. It stopped.
I don't know, I would disagree that it hurt her.
Well, it hurt her in that
she's famous.
she's
She's
famous.
a working actress on a sitcom.
Yeah, but she's famous as, it took her a while to shed that, that Naked Girl from American Pie. And what it did was it actually scared a lot of other actresses from doing nudity because girls would say, I don't want to get known as the naked girl from American Pie. And whereas in Europe, it's just like a different thing. There's so much less uptight about nudity over there that they'll do it. It's like there's nudity in movies, there's nudity on television. Like they don't care. And you see over in America, Janet Jackson shows her nipple and everyone goes insane. But in Europe, they're laughing at us for stuff like that.
I've found it interesting in French films and European films. Sometimes you'll see a film that has nudity in it, but it's never during the parts that the nudity would be in an American film.
Yeah.
Like they'll do the sex scene with all their clothes on, and then the next morning they'll get out of bed and they'll be completely naked with their clothes off, peeing in the bathroom and all that stuff. Whereas in an American film, they sort of save the money shot. Oh, okay, that actress is getting paid $10 million to show her nipple for 30 seconds in a sex scene. In a way, it's a much more prurient kind of attitude towards the whole thing, which you exploit.
But almost all the almost all the famous like French actresses have not only done nudity, have done it like continuously.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. I was like, look, it didn't hurt. I mean, even in America, Angelina Jolie did it in Gia. I mean, Nicole Kidman's done nudity. Halle Berry. Like, I just went through the Oscar-winning actresses that had done nudity, and they're sort of like, okay, it's not just going to make me look like, some.
But actually, it was interesting what you were saying though about how, they were really nervous at the beginning of the day, and were like, when it came down to the day, they were very nervous about it.
Yeah, they're nervous with doing the sex scene.
And they were very like, well, okay, well, what exactly am I going to see? What exactly are we going to show? And this and that and the other. But then once they were on the set and realized it wasn't a big deal and the crew didn't care and no one was judging them, and it was just like any other
It was like any other day. I'm like, I hate to break it to you, but the crew is really thinking about lunch and when we're going to wrap. Like, they're not interested in waiting to see you naked. They want to get done so they can go home. And they can go get drinks. They can go out with their family.
What I never understood is like some actresses who are going to do nudity, like, it's a closed set, and then like it ends up in like 8 billion theaters and 8 billion DVDs. You're like, oh well, it's a good thing that the crew wasn't able to see you, but the rest of the world
everyone else
will.
on the planet
it's ridiculous.
For
it's
all,
just
for all the
just do
nudity in the film, I think this performance by Derek Richardson as a young guy having sex for one of the first times in his life it's really one of his best moments. It really connects you to him emotionally.
Yeah, and you notice how like Jay Hernandez is just completely in the background. We didn't even it's so we really made such a conscious choice. And I remember actually, Quentin, the first time I told you the story, I was like, okay, if I have these two guys, how can I keep having them escape? I can't have them escape and then get caught and then brought back there and then escape. Like, how fucking dangerous is this place if these Americans can keep getting out of there? And you just said, do the psycho switch. You fucking kill your main character. Make it all about this guy and all about his experience, and we're following him, and then you fucking kill him. And it will completely pull the rug out from under the audience. That was your suggestion. It was such a great idea and totally freed me up, really, to be able to tell like the story and to go in that direction, just knowing that all these little things that I set up about like, is he gay or how's he going to explore that? Like, you don't have to pay any of it off because we're just going to kill him.
Right.
And then the audience I wanted them to feel as kind of helpless and lost as Paxton does.
Yeah, one of the things I was thinking about I think at the time was like, well, you should like kill one guy and then make sure the other guy gets maimed.
Yes. Yeah.
So no bullshit pussy. The guy just managed to get away scot-free.
No, he's going to be fucking scarred for life from this. I don't know, Scotty, Boaz, what did you think when you first read the script?
Oh, I thought it was cool, man. I thought it was really disturbing, and a lot of it too reminded me of that really underrated Australian film, Long Weekend.
Long
Weekend.
Long Weekend, great
into
movie.
This story.
Colin Eggleston.
And and you're just into it, and it's just, I don't know, so incredibly believable. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, you're like, whoa, what in the hell? What's going on here?
Yeah.
And that it can happen. And that it's, but I just thought it was just a terrific, tight thriller and.
Yeah, I know you like to say you wrote it in 2.5 weeks, but that's not exactly accurate in the sense that you write incredibly fast, but then you go in and you do changes.
Yeah.
And by the time you've done your like 4th or 5th pass, you've done as much work as someone who's done the same thing in like 2 months, but you've done it like so quickly over and over and over again. Scotty and I used to laugh that like when we would go over a note session, we would expect you to come back like a week later, 2 weeks later, and like we'd hang the phone up and then the door would ring.
Ding
and we were
dong.
like, who's that?
Here are the pages.
You'd like ding ding, there's
Oh,
Eli, and you're
Lord.
like, hey, I got the pages, and
Oh,
you just ended up doing like 5 drafts in the amount of time somebody else would do one. And it was sort of your process of getting to the same place.
Oh no, you were on fire. There's
Well,
no doubt about
it's
it.
weird. It's like, I mean, I realized that it was a number of things. I mean, Quentin was really helpful in getting me off the computer, and that like writing longhand and writing with a pen, and just kind of not feeling tied to.
No
the
wonder
typewriter.
none of the actors could read their dialogue.
Yeah, it was all like and my stick figure writing, but.
Well, I mean, it's actually it was funny because I just remember that day when we were hanging out at the pool. At that moment, you knew what your next movie was going to be.
Yeah, I didn't know.
And you were like, okay, I got to get the fuck out of here. I got to go home.
Yeah, it was weird. Like, as soon as you said it, I felt
cool,
like
man.
this weird, like, itch. Like, I really want to hang out, but, like, I hope you understand, but I really want to write. And you were like, no, man, go. And I really did. I really, I felt like I just was getting distracted by email and phone calls and meetings, and I canceled everything. And I was just like, I just thought for raw nerve. I mean, originally we were going to, like, just produce movies and look for movies for other people to direct, and maybe we'd direct one or two. And I was like, no, this has got to be, like, let's do this, man. Let's get our brand out there and make this our first theatrical movie. And it just seemed like everything made sense. It was like, oh my God. Do you know what it was? It was like everything was right there in front of me, but sometimes you need just like your friend to just smack you around or kick
Right,
your ass. Be like, what do you, look at this opportunity. You have a company, you have like these incredible guys, and like they're like terrific writers and friends, and this is what you should be doing. And it just totally like set me straight,
The Japanese girl who plays Kana.
Oh yeah, actually,
is she known there, or is she who is
Jennifer
she?
Lim? Jennifer Lim is terrific. She's a British actress. She lives in London, and she's on the TV show League of Gentlemen, which is a really popular cult TV show in England. And it was really hard to find a Japanese girl in Prague. Honestly, like Yuki, I think is the only Japanese girl in Prague. There are lots of Thai girls. There are lots of we were trying to say, okay, should they both be Thai? I wanted them to both be, from the same place. And, but Jennifer came in, and, her mother's Japanese. And so she just auditioned from London. And we flew her over. It's easy to get from London to Prague, but I thought she did such a great job.
Of course, her
And
last name is what? Lim?
Lim. Yeah, she's Chinese and Japanese.
She loses a limb.
What'd you say? She loses a couple of those.
A museum
of torture. Love that.
Now, this was just a
I
fortuitous
love that.
coincidence that this place was actually there, because originally the scene was conceived for an art museum, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I find art museums.
But there was a piece of dialogue in there about the Museum of Medieval Torture.
Quentin had a great line that we wound up cutting for time. Where he's like, they're talking about what to do, and he goes, and Aethor goes, "Oh, I know what to do. Let's get seriously fucking stoned and go to the Museum of Torture." And then they, of course, wind up, going to the Museum of Torture. I mean, it was one of those fortuitous things where you feel like, okay, this was meant to be. We were on the location scout. This is the Scott. I put this in just for Scotty.
Oh, man.
The Scotty Spiegel
That was
jump of the
great.
guy. Like,
Beautiful.
I went to the museum and I started going, oh wait, what if the guy jumped out and grabbed you?
It reminds me of that Christopher Lee movie, Horror Castle,
Yeah,
with that
yeah.
demented executioner character.
Yeah, but it was an art gallery, and I just from traveling around I
love
go to art.
that.
I always go to art museums by myself, and they can be really weird and creepy and eerie. But then we were in this location where the village is, and they had a museum of torture. And I thought, well, this is perfect. The whole movie is about torture as entertainment and how this has been going on in human history for hundreds of years. And we actually took their screams, the screams of Derek and Jane,
yeah.
we put them in the soundtrack there.
Oh,
so
excellent.
when
That
they're
was
walking through, they're
subliminal.
hearing their own, and they see that chair, they're that kind of death chair, and they wind up in the chair. And this is just one of those things where it's like you're in a location, you see it, and you go, how can we not shoot here?
Well, one of the things I like about it is, like what you're saying, there's like a thing running throughout the whole film of torture as entertainment. And it's not even a subtext. It's a text.
Right.
No, these people, I think the subtext is more kind of exploitation and walking into a room to, sort of like these guys in Amsterdam getting the hookers, they, winding up as the hookers in the window and sort of.
Here's a Scott Spiegel transition coming up. Eli, do you want to talk about how this shot comes in?
Yeah, I mean, this is the Aethor head, and, we see Yuki, and this was like a great thing where, when Quentin read the draft of the script, he's like, oh man, what if you cut to Yuki and she's tied up, and the guy's got a fucking bolt cutter, and he's cutting off her toes one by one, and we're like, yeah! And then it was one of those things where I thought, you know what, wouldn't it be great if we did a total Scotty Spiegel edit, which you did so many of in Intruder. Like these classic thing where you set up for one
and
clip,
you
you're
did
expecting,
it
you're
so
expecting,
well.
and then we tried to find a movie where someone's like clipping with hedge clippers or something. Almodovar does that a lot. Building up, and then like cut to her toe.
That was great, and then it's her
Total Scotty
friend.
Spiegel cut.
But you did it so well. It was great. It was too classic. I
And
love
even
that
the Czech
stuff.
crew was like, "We are doing the Scotty Spiegel shot." Like they were like that
Like, oh, for the
that
love
kind of got known as like a Spiegel cut.
What in the heck?
Like we are doing Spiegel cut. I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't know why she's doing her toes in the lobby,
she
but
was
I
gonna
thought,
do him tomato.
But tomato.
Where
yeah,
she's cutting her red toenails that are already painted.
You know what? Yeah, but I loved it. I just
If
thought,
you're
you know what?
thinking about that at this point in the
Yeah.
movie,
And do you know what's so funny is that honestly, that
But
image
it's the red that sells that.
of the bolt cutter, that kind of this little piggy went to Slovakia going over, like that, like when in the trailer, that's like the single image that people remember the most.
Yeah.
You know, it's always like that
Who
simple
knew?
stuff. Yeah, you never know. I mean, it's weird. It's like that gets the biggest reaction, the biggest laugh in the movies when they're in the disco. And he's talking to Josh, is talking to the Dutch businessman, and Jay Hernandez goes, "Hey, Josh, faggot," and he kind of says it under his breath. It totally is this throwaway, and that like always gets the biggest laugh in the movie.
Ridiculous.
I actually had an idea before this got Spiegel cut. It's like cut off all the toes, and then they're all like on a newspaper. All right, yeah, so they're collecting them on the newspaper. They're just picking up the newspaper, then dumping the toes in the trash.
I should have shot
That would
that.
have been so friggin' cool.
little tater tots, just sitting on a newspaper,
tots.
and then you picking them up and kind of have to hold the newspaper together. So
Oh no! We should have. What we should have done? She should have cut off her toes and cut them eating pigs in a blanket.
Oh, this little piggy went to.
Yeah.
Yuck.
I love the scene with these guys. Like I feel like this is like that. You know, they've dropped the the actor trying to be cool. Like I feel like it's such a real moment for the two of them.
One of my favorite pieces of dialogue is like, look. We can not fuck these girls
Yeah,
and go home tomorrow, or we can go home tomorrow and still fuck these girls.
Yeah, and that's the whole idea is that you notice they're staying in room 237, of course, when Shining reference. Don't go in room 237. This is my favorite song, Third Galaxy by Michal David. We played this over and over. There's a big hit from Prague in 1982.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that's the idea is that, like, these girls aren't even girls to them. They're just stories, like, everyone has, like, and that's why Amsterdam looks like an X-rated Disneyland. Like, the girls are just a ride. And they're, like, they don't give a shit about these girls. They're only fucking them so they can talk about it later on.
Yeah.
There's
no keeping in touch.
No one's connecting to
That's
anyone
cool.
like a human being. Everyone's just looking to what they can get from the other person. And I think that the girls do a great job. This is kind of the last moment where they're nice to them, and you just see the look on her face when he leaves, and she says goodbye.
do you think that in countries where these folks are from in Eastern Europe that people are going to get upset that so many of them in the movie are seen as kind of being in cahoots with each other and kind of basically all banding together to kind of fuck over the Americans? Do you think that that's kind of something that's going to turn them off, or that they're just going to laugh about it?
I think they're gonna love it. I mean, Slovakia, I've made it seem like this really scary place. It's really nice and beautiful, and the people are friendly. But as I pointed out to the crew when they read the script, was that the people that are doing the worst shit in the movie are Americans. It's Americans, the Japanese, the Germans, the so-called like westernized, nations, and we even have the crew members, like the kind of the thug guys are all speaking Russian. So I really wanted to feel like it was the Russian mafia that had just kind of gone to this area of Slovakia and sort of taken it over. I'm very curious to see how they react. I mean, I think that they'll find it funny, hopefully, or they'll fucking torture me to death.
I mean, one of the things about the movie that works, in particularly for Americans or people in the westernized countries, is just the fact that this is all happening in Eastern Europe. Like you cross a border and then you're in a no man's land.
Yeah.
And it's one of the more chilling moments in the movie is when the detective, when he goes to see about his friend and talks to the cop. And the cop goes, "Oh, you're a very long way from home."
Yeah, you're so far from
home. And it just kind of like drives it home. But like if they were in the Middle East, if they were in or Eastern Europe, either one of the two, it's like it's not westernized.
Yeah.
We're just we're Americans, and now we don't have any connection to anything that we know and are from.
familiar
And
with.
it seems like anything could happen. And if anything does happen, you're shit out of luck.
Yeah, well, I think that Americans have this false sense that, like, we're Americans and we have the most powerful army in the world and we're protected and no one's going to fuck with us. But, there are areas of the world where it doesn't fucking matter. People always feel like someone's going to come and save the day.
I think there's something interesting about the fact that
Love this look
Jay
of the girls.
Hernandez, who's Mexican,
Yeah, Latino. Yeah.
Latino, plays the sort of representation of American attitude in the film, and it really came about because he was the best actor that we could find for the part. He was written as a much more kind of blonde white guy, and I was actually quite nervous about it. Eli felt real comfortable with it, and in fact, it's an interesting. It ends up, I think, giving this thing an interesting dimension in that America is a place where people of all ethnicities and races end up becoming American
Yes.
to the rest of the world.
More or less.
And in fact, there is a line that we put in later when he's about to be tortured by a German, where he suddenly, at that point in the movie, he starts to go, "Wait a minute, look at me, I'm not American."
Yeah, like he's trying
But
to
it's
play it
too
off
late.
like he's
It's like,
Spanish or
fuck
Mexican
you,
or
you've
something.
been taking advantage of being American for the whole picture, and now that it's about to cost you, you're trying to like deny it.
Yeah, I know.
Well, still, if it's going to save your life, you're going to try anything, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I love that he pulls that, and then the guy just pulls out the passport, and he's like, American. And that was, I remember, I have such a vivid memory of, like, talking with you about that scene, Quentin. You got up and you were like, started acting it out. You were like, I'm like, if I went there, I'm going to pay for America. I want to make sure he's fucking American. And you can have the guy being like, talk. And the guy's like, what the fuck? And they're like, okay, he's American. Yeah. And that's where that came from.
Well, actually, that was one of the things. That was one of the things that I kept like focusing in about the script. Is I wanted to know all the details
minutia,
of exactly the minutia of how this place works. But you are a customer.
Right.
How does this place work? And, to get the Asian girl. Okay, he asked for an Asian girl. How long did he have to wait
Yeah.
to
Right.
get the Asian girl? Does that mean, like, chill in Amsterdam for 2 weeks until we give you a call?
Yeah.
What does that
Stay
mean?
close. And this cut, this was a great edit, Quentin, that you helped us with, where we fade out on Paxton, and fade in on Josh. And we had some really cool flashes and scares that were in between, but I thought that really helped preserve the mystery.
Yeah.
And I think Boaz and Scott, you guys were talking about, I said, like, we fade up and we see Josh in a chair, and I remember you guys were saying, well, what if we didn't know who it was at first? It's just one of the guys in the room,
Yeah.
and then the hood is revealed, and then it's Josh. And this was where Derek Richardson and
I can't even watch the scene because I got to like Derek so much that watching him go through this is just excruciating.
and that's one of the reasons we cast him, is that we like Derek so much. He's such a funny, likable guy, and so sweet. And it's just before we were shooting it, we thought, God, it's really going to be horrible watching Derek Richardson get tortured. And that's what I wanted. I didn't want people cheering in this scene. I wanted people to be so aghast. But what was really cool was after the screening in Iceland, one girl said to me that during this scene she was just so appalled by the torture that was going on. And by the end of the movie, she was cheering on the blood, like she wanted to see more blood. And that it scared her that she could like find it within herself to be cheering for blood.
You brought her over to the bloodlust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that everyone has it within them, that everybody has that capacity for violence.
Ah, that's a great
The
shot.
driller
I
killer.
love
The gore.
I love
on
the meat.
drill.
I love the meat on the pigtail thing.
That was
Yeah.
that was a good bit.
Yeah, and that was actually pork. That was actual pork.
Oh,
because
for
we
the-
drilled into like a pork leg
Oh,
to give
man, that's
that
not
fleshy
kosher.
effect. Now there was a speech that was in here that we really liked, but it kind of took away from this, where he talks about how the witch finders in medieval Europe used to torture people, and and finding the name of finding the witch, and we just felt that like it kind of really took away from this moment, where he just sort of turns, and it also felt like if Josh had heard that guy talking, he would have figured out it was him. But here, it seems plausible he had just had no idea what the hell was going on until he takes off the mask.
Now, Eli, when we were talking about this scene where he cuts the back of Josh's legs so that he can't walk out of the room and kind of leaves and tells him he can go, one of the things we had talked about was the idea of seeing him go off to the side and just like pee in the bathroom while Josh was trying to crawl out. What happened? Why did you decide not to go with that?
Well, two things. One, it was just we couldn't build. There was just a limited amount of sets we could build, and on our budget. And that's why I had him whistling going off, and we put in sound effects of him going to the bathroom, but the music wound up drowning it out. I felt like in shooting it and watching it, like I just wanted to stay with Josh.
That makes
and
total
if,
sense.
And if you had the guy peeing, it just took away from the moment of escape. Like I felt like, oh my God, this is a chance. I wanted the door, Josh, the door, Josh, the door, and that kind of going away from that. Even when we were shooting, like trying to shoot shots of a cutaway of the guy off to the side waiting, it just sort of it didn't feel right.
Totally understand.
But I thought Jan was so scary at this moment in this scene. Like, this really just...
It's hard to believe he doesn't understand the words he's saying.
I mean, he knows it. He knows the translation he is, but he doesn't remember it. He really doesn't speak any English. And then I'd go up to him after and give him direction, and he'd have to go through the translator.
Now,
I love this yell. This
is real.
the part that I never thought you would do is actually show the legs coming apart and do the special effect. That's where this movie really pushed it.
Ugh.
Well, this moment here, when he was writhing around in the chair, it came down and crushed his toe and split his toe open.
Ugh.
So when he's screaming there, he's screaming for real. And I remember, I was trying to get Derek to that place where he would loosen up. And it's when we have actors like that, you don't have to tell them to get upset. He's doing it on his own. But my only direction to him, I said, do you want to do any more takes of this? And he said, I don't know. And I said, if you want this to be your last take, make it your last take. That's up to you. And he just went for it.
That's a good piece of direction.
Yes, exactly.
And he went nuts. And there's the split that Boaz was talking about. That was Howard Berger from K&B.
Howard,
and now,
man.
all right, yeah, let's talk about K&B, man.
Man, they're awesome.
You guys, did they meet on Evil Dead 2?
I met those guys on Evil Dead 2, and then I called them up because to do my first movie, Intruder, which was $130,000, and looking for somebody else they may know who could do the effects cheaply. Greg Nicotero's like, I'll do it, and we're off and running. Next thing you know, he's working with Quentin. They're working, then they formed their company.
Greg
on Intruder, I guess.
Yeah, Greg Nicotero and Bob Kurtzman. I met those guys. Same thing as Scotty. Same thing as Boaz. Before I'd even directed a movie.
Right.
Yeah,
I was at.
Me too.
I think I was at Bob Kurtzman's house for Christmas.
Oh, that's right. Because of From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah, exactly.
That
Exactly. But before I'd ever shot a film.
Right.
That's really cool. And they did Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah, they did they did Reservoir Dogs. They've worked on all my films, and it was Bob Kurtzman was the first guy who's the K in K&B.
That's right.
Used to be the K in K&B, but that's
he now does Precinct 13. Did our digital effects.
And he was the first person to ever hire me to write anything.
That's right.
Oh, wow.
He hired me to write Dusk Till Dawn. That was his idea. It was his story.
Exactly.
And he offered it to Scotty. Scotty was busy at that time. I said, well, how about my friend Quentin? And Scotty had been doing that to a lot of people, and this was the first guy that actually came over with some money.
Wow.
And for I think he had $1,200 for me to write the script for Dusk Till Dawn. But that was great because I quit my day job to write Dusk Till Dawn.
That was some pretty substantial money for you.
Oh, I know. You know how broke
you-
I was.
Oh,
I mean, I was like,
You must have had a very low standard of living for $1,200.
the thing about it was, actually, when you make $10,000 a year and you get $1,200, bam, like that.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
All right, that's a
huge
whole
deal.
lot of, that's 2 months. Right? And so I quit my job, and I was just like, okay, now I'm being paid to write, and I'm going to be a writer. And you know what? I never had to take another day job again. After that,
amazing.
it was
Good
just
for
like
you.
something else came
it was
along
crazy.
that I got $7,000 for. Something else came along, I
Yeah.
got $3,000 for.
True romance. So
Yeah,
it
exactly.
goes
Next thing I
on
know,
and
I'm paying for myself as a writer.
so freaking cool.
Well, K&B, and it's great because I knew that after Cabin Fever, those guys went on to Kill Bill, to China to do Kill Bill, and they were telling Quentin about Cabin Fever. So when he came back, you had heard about it from K&B.
Oh, yeah,
Effects.
totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And we met each other at the Undead screening.
screening for like a second.
Only one screening that they were going to have of the movie at William Morris.
Yeah, and I saw it, and I was sitting right behind you, and I was like so nervous but really excited. And then you came to see it at the Los Angeles Film Festival, and and Boaz and I met on Price Above Rubies.
Yes, with Eli being the stand-in for one of the main characters.
Yeah, I'd worked
Playing a chassid.
playing a chassid, and I had done the budget and helped with the schedule on the movie, and then with the producer John Panade, I was working for John, and then he said, well, do you want to work on the movie? And I said, yeah, you can make me the stand-in. And Boaz, what are your memories of me as a stand-in? I think
The only comment I remember making about Eli on Price Above Rubies was, God, without knowing it was Eli, she says, isn't it amazing how much better the frame actually looks when the real actor steps into the shot? Isn't it amazing how the composition just seems to get better without even moving the camera?
Yeah, Boaz and Adam Hollander were waxing poetic about how much better the frame was without me in it.
Plus, that stand-in's too hairy.
Yeah, good. Come on. But I was playing a Hasidic Jew, so come on. It worked to my advantage.
You were in character.
I was in character. If I'm too hairy for the Hasidim, then I'm in serious trouble.
You're too hairy to play an Hasidic Jew.
Yeah, sorry. They wouldn't let me in. Gorilka.
We're into hair, but goddamn.
I think that this is an interesting section of the film because Jay Hernandez has been playing a more unlikable kind of narcissistic
the frat
character.
boy.
Like a frat boy.
Suddenly, because of the situation that he finds himself in and that the audience finds himself in with him,
Stuck with him.
they start to feel for him, for his dilemma. You know, I think that's something interesting that you see in film where just by the nature of the fact that you are with a character, you can be with an even terribly unlikable character. And because they're in jeopardy, you start to feel for them, you know? And I think that this is a really interesting switch from Derek to Jay. And because of what you put him through, the audience can't help suddenly feeling for the guy.
That dog tortures me.
I love that dog.
The little dog. Why is that little poodle there? Why can't
Did
I
that just happen, or did you put him in there?
No, it was this neighbor, the lady. If you look to the left, she lived in that apartment. That damn poodle. She let it run around.
I love that. I try to throw dogs or anything. They'll run through the frame. I'm into live things running through the frame.
I'm all about animals, but I want to look at that washing machine that's still there. Look at how gross this place looks.
Must be raining cats and dogs because I just stepped in a poodle.
Oh, what? No, I love the little De Niro guy in the next shot. Look at De Niro. He's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a very little De Niro guy.
Yeah, they're creepy looking dudes. But it's not that there was a dog. It's that it was like the cleanest, fluffiest, most groomed poodle.
Yeah, it looked pretty mangy to me.
All right, well, that's cool. Maybe I'm being overcritical.
It was the environment it was in that really brought it down.
Yeah, actually seeing a poodle walk around in that shitty environment was really cool.
This pub is an actual, like, it's you walk in there, it's like you're walking into the 50s.
Wait, is that part of the coasters? Is that they're part of the real design?
We didn't touch a thing in this place.
Yeah, nor should you have.
We did not touch anything. The only thing we had to do was ask there are these patrons that have probably been there for 50 years. I mean, this place, my DP Milan and my sound guy Tomasz, they used to hang out at this place in high school, almost like as a goof, because it was like this old communist pub. And, when they read the script, they were like, you got to see this location. We walked in. We didn't have to do anything to it.
This actually kind of reminds me of that place in Iceland. That director, he owns the bar there.
Yeah. The guy who did Reykjavik 101, Balthazar. This scene was my favorite scene with the girls. I thought Yana really, really did a great job. The blonde and Barbara's Natalia's fantastic. And it took a lot of makeup to get those girls to look that way. And if you notice, like Yana's arms, track marks and stuff. And I was really, I don't know. I've had that situation where like your friend hooks up with a girl and then your friend's missing, but you've got to get like you need their help, but like you can't quite scream at them. But do they not understand what they're saying? Are they playing lost in translation?
Where are my friends?
And
these folks are all actually college professors and doctors in Prague, but the economy is so bad that they're forced to sit around in bars and play film extras.
No, there were some scary looking people there.
How you say, for artists?
Did the girls give you any problems about dressing them down?
No, honestly, the girls loved it. I mean, these girls are so used to looking beautiful all the time, and they both have done modeling, and so they really, really threw themselves into it. And I kept checking the makeup trailer. I was like, all right, more darker circles under the eyes and bad teeth and dirt under their fingernails. They loved it. They felt so free. They felt like they didn't have to try and look nice. They just look disgusting. And I love that when Jay Hernandez walks in, they're still almost trying to keep up the act. Like, hey.
But half-heartedly. That's what I like about it. They're half-heartedly keeping up the act.
Yeah. They're just almost seeing if he'll bite. Like, hey. And the scene coming up in the car, actually, we cut it pretty short, but I actually wish I had left it a little longer. I love how distant and cold. If you think of how she was in the beginning in the sauna, and Quentin, I remember you said your comment was that like you thought the girls looked so beautiful by the beginning of the movie, and by the end you just wanted to fucking kill them.
Yeah.
And Barbara, she even put on weight. Like she put on like an extra 5 pounds. So her face, like she looks really very different in the disco than this was towards the end of the shoot. She just gained weight and like to make herself look like shit. And I don't know, it's hard to find girls. I've found. Maybe you guys have had a different experience that'll do that.
Oh yeah, God, that's just great. I didn't know that you did the. Oh yeah, I guess I did know. Yeah, you were doing the disco stuff early on, so this was way down the end of the shoot.
Yeah, it's about 4 or 5 weeks later, and then this factory. God, this place was.
Well,
so
this
cool.
is the greatest.
Yeah, and this was this is the thing that like this in the Village was what sold me on shooting in Prague. Was that it's so funny because in the background, look behind.
I
you
love
see,
that
like,
shot, by the way.
Yeah,
with the reflection
thank
in the
you.
window.
I love that.
Yeah, I was really happy with how this shot turned out. And Nate Barr did such a great score with his cello music here.
Well, one of the things I started thinking about, and I hadn't thought about it before, because it's kind of an exciting time right now in horror films, because there is like a new wave of horror movies.
Yeah.
These kind of ultra-violent films
Realistic.
that started off with Takashi Miike
Yes.
6 years ago,
Yeah,
and is
and
now
Battle
finally
Royale,
and Battle Royale and everything has definitely worked its way into America. And it's doing well too. To me, it's the first legitimate horror subgenre to exist since the slasher films of the '80s.
Wow.
And I mean, you could say the Scream ones, but they're retro and they're connected to the slasher films of the '80s.
Yeah.
And it's a really exciting time for horror films. But one of the things is, as much as this is a different film, okay, I'm gonna shut up for 2 seconds as we mentioned Takashi Miike.
Miike, yeah. I love the way it's all your money.
Spend all your money.
In there. That's Takashi Miike, the director we're talking about. And I had not discovered
He's the
Miike
godfather of this project.
of this ultra-violent horror
of this genre,
movies.
of this entire
Of
subgenre.
everything.
Right.
And it was so cool of him to do this cameo. And he flew over, and the guy makes like 6 movies a year, and he flew over 9 hours from Japan to Prague just to do that one little bit.
Well, and when I had read one of the drafts, I'm like, okay, we need to have some level of normalcy here, because I'm not going to buy the fact that he just blindly goes in there.
Yeah, Scott goes, no way, no way am I going in there, forget it.
And then you had the great idea of casting him as just kind of a guy that's
Yeah,
just like, hey, it's kind of cool in there. You can spend all. And I was like, oh man.
Well, it's just one thing that
so
makes it
sold.
legitimate, all right? Sort of,
Exactly.
kinda.
Well,
Sort of, kinda.
No, I thought-
Not
I
that
thought-
Takashi Miike calms my nerves.
Yeah.
No, but you know what I mean.
That's the idea, is that he's so out of place, and there's limos, and there's some guy coming out who's obviously some rich guy. Like, what is he doing there? Well, I guess it's not that bad, because that guy.
And there are
Maybe
limos
that's the way
outside
they-
with drivers waiting
And maybe
for
that's
them.
the
Yeah.
way they do it. Okay, it's a little funky, but all right.
Yes, I love the way she says yes. Yeah. And like, this is my favorite shot.
Mr.
The two of them in their standoff. Yeah, no, and Miike, it was so cool of him to do it, and it was really fun having him on set. And he does not speak any English at all, and he really learned that phonetically and rehearsed all morning. And he's such a fan of Quentin's work, and it's really like he was just so sweet. It was so
As I
nice to have
am
him
of
on
his.
set.
Oh, but what I was going to say before.
But he didn't have to audition for it.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I had to do that. Sorry. Go ahead, Quentin.
One of the things, and I think it's a good time to bring it up here, is like, as much as we're talking about it being this new subgenre, there also is this aspect of this actually also plays into all the cliches of a gothic horror story, where you have the beautiful women, the sirens that are luring the guys to the ominous place, and it's in Eastern Europe, no less, okay, where they usually were, all right, Transylvania, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then this factory is the stand-in for the gothic castle that all the torture and all the hell happens. And almost every cliche of a gothic horror story, this is a modern version of it.
It's amazing. No, I love gothic horror films. I love vampire. I love all these.
You've
old
got dungeons. You've got
I love
the whole
that
thing.
stuff. I love that European feel and Dracula, and it's so funny because I never made that connection.
It's like Dracula's daughters are luring these guys.
Yeah, and this was the basement of this mental hospital.
But one of the things that makes it so great is as opposed to a gothic horror story, it's not just the evil count or the evil baron or whoever who's doing all this stuff. This is a commercial enterprise. It
Yep.
makes it even all the worse that it actually is a commercial enterprise.
Yeah, people are doing it for money. And then this scene, this was great. Like, shooting in this location, it was really creepy down there. And we were filming in the basement of a mental hospital. It was actually a functioning hospital where 1,100 people live, and this wing had been shut down for like 50 years, built in like 1910. So you just go in these rooms and you feel like horrible things had happened to people. Like people had been tortured to death in there.
I love this sequence. It sort of reminds me, just in terms of tone, of what happens at the end of the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where you've seen all this horror, but then there's this moment where she's just sitting in a room and everything's going insane around her.
Yeah.
And you're just like, okay, now I'm in hell finally.
Right.
You kind of want to be there and you kind of don't. And that's where you get to.
I love that montage.
Yeah.
That's where you
Yeah, the
get to
dinner.
at this point where you're like, okay, finally I'm really in hell, you know?
And apparently that was shot at the end of a 27-hour day.
Yeah, I heard it was like that. She was really going crazy. And that they kept vomiting because they're burning animal carcasses right outside the house. It was, but yeah, that's the idea, is that this is supposed to be like a Dante's Inferno hell version of the brothel. You know, we saw Josh walking up and down the halls, looking in the rooms, and now Jay Hernandez gets a similar experience. And that was the idea. And then this was, here we come in with, the guys walk in, and it's that scene. It's so funny. Like, I see it, but I remember Quentin acting it out, going, talk, speak,
I really like that Jay kind of courageously doesn't try to act like the action hero dude in any of this stuff. He looks like a scared little kid, and I think a lot of young actors would be try to cover a little bit more. Try to put on a little bit more of an act. And
Bully.
says Jay Hernandez, macho, not sensitive.
So, Boaz, you were talking about Jay Hernandez.
Yeah, I was just saying that I really I like the way he plays the rest of the film and these scenes in the movie, and that he doesn't try and kind of put on a macho attitude or kind of make himself look good the way a lot of young actors might try to do. He really plays it terrified and extremely vulnerable, and I think it really helps the picture.
Well, yeah, that was one of the things we talked about, was that he, if someone's about to kill you, would you be like a tough guy, or would you sit there crying, kind of begging for help? And I thought that was really, brave of Jay. Certainly I know young actors, but especially in like that Latino culture, like that, you don't want to look like a pussy. And he really, I thought, made himself, look like he's terrified and very sympathetic in a way that you really, really, I think, he's been kind of such a sexist dickhead up to the point that Josh disappears, that this is the moment where he really, really wins the audience's sympathy over.
Remember this, Eli? This was cool. A cool gag. I thought it would be kind of cool if he had like the...
Yeah, this was Scotty Spiegel.
And he just really milked it for every last bit.
Where he's snipping and snipping and snipping. You think he got him in the face, and then it's actually, he was, collecting the hair.
A little memento. Oh!
And this actor was completely...
What a...
fucking nuts. We had to be careful about putting tools in his hand, because he was started swinging them at crew members and stuff.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, but he was just nervous. He wasn't nuts. He was, just...
But he's great casting, man.
Yeah, this guy was really scary.
Where's he from?
Peter, he's a playwright, and he lives in Prague. And he came in, and he just had those eyes. All he had to do was stare, and he had that weird, Lester Lightbulb head. And
He
it was
is
just
actually
terrifying.
Shakespeare.
He actually, what?
Well, I also like the fact that he's kind of timid about it at first too.
Right.
He's a little nervous about doing it.
Well, that was one of the things you talked about, Quentin, where you're like, if this guy came to do it, have these people done it before? Or is it some guy's first time, he's going to a hooker? Like he's never been to a prostitute before and he doesn't know how to act. And that's why I kind of wanted to, he almost sort of mirrors how nervous Josh is.
Yeah.
Where he wants to do it and he feels bad.
Now, when he's speaking German here, there was an issue about having the subtitles there or not. I think ultimately I'm on your side of not having them there, but I thought that was really cool. Remember there was a discussion there for 2 seconds?
Yeah, no, we watched the movie and we didn't have the subtitles on. And I felt like suddenly subtitles coming in the movie just sort of took away from the moment. That I like the idea that... there's 9 languages in the film and nothing's ever subtitled.
Yeah, I like that too.
That you just don't know what he's saying. But I also think that people like puzzles, Like, I'm sure, you've been on the internet and everyone's like, yes, it's Marcellus Wallace's soul in the box in Pulp Fiction. Like, if you give people a little mystery, they'd love to go and decode it. And whether or not they're totally wrong, I felt like something like that, it would just be great. You feel like if one person knows German, kids will look around on the internet to try and find, what it means or what did he say, or... It doesn't really matter ultimately.
I love the way you directed that too, because of the ball. You just cut right to the chase. You know, it was really cool. Like, what is he doing? Oh, I get it.
Yeah, and this came not so much as a Pulp Fiction reference. This really came of like just talking with Greg Nicotero of like what could we gag him with that we could actually that they would have that we could rig the tubes to spray the vomit out.
Yeah.
You know, that was kind of Greg Nicotero. I went over to KMB and we sat down and we kind of walked through the different tortures. And he said, "Oh, I can rig this ball," and this was a fun shot to do. You know, you just start to hear the chainsaw revving up and like, oh shit. And I remember, you know, this was the thing we all talked about was how do we get him out of the chair, you know? And I remember in the script there was something where the chair fell over and his hands landed on the chainsaw. And Quentin was like, all right, we're gonna.
That was my bullshit moment. Yeah.
I'm calling bullshit on that. And we're gonna put this script through the bullshit test. And if anything feels like movie convenience, we're taking it out. That it's got to be like what would happen. And I remember Boaz, we talked about like could he cut his arm off or cut his hand off?
No, yeah, I remember there was a pass where Jay's hand got cut off at the wrist, and that's how he got his hand out of the cuffs. And I remember saying he'll never survive the rest of the film. If his entire hand is off, he'll be in shock for the rest of the picture. So we came up with this idea of just getting enough fingers off so that like his hand could get out of, out of the handcuff. And in a way, it's more horrible. I think people can identify with things that are a little bit off kilter more than they can with things that are just totally clean. You know?
Oh no, actually, I agree. It's like that's why. Like, you see a decapitation in a movie is one thing. You see a paper cut in a movie, and then everyone goes, oh!
Yeah, it's so true. It's like the bolt cutter on the toe. Somehow that metal ripping around the toe. And this was...
Right. I mean, the weird part about it, you don't even see the toe get cut, but people are talking about that and not the leg,
not
the
leg,
whole leg getting cut off.
You know, the leg getting cut by the chainsaw.
I think it's amazing that you got away with what you got away with in a rated R picture on Hostel.
Well, I think it reflects the culture where we're at right now. I mean, you know, if we're at war, how much worse is my movie, you know?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I think the ratings board is like just really kind of turned a really, really interesting corner for like horror films in particular. All right, in the last few years. Because they kind of get it now. They just kind of get the fact that, okay, fans are going to see this. It's not like, you know, when you see Freddy versus Jason, it's clearly marked.
Yeah, and if it's got our names on it, like I don't know what mother's going to take their kid to see this movie and then be shocked that there's blood. I mean, we're not hiding it.
But cool mothers will take their kids to see this.
Better.
Eli Roth's mother.
That's right.
I walked up to her after the screening and I'm feeling kind of appalled that a middle-aged lady had sat through it. And I was like, boy, it's kind of hard to take. And she goes, what do you mean?
Yeah.
I know. Try growing up, bringing all your friends to Evil Dead, the first screening. And my mom's bringing like her church group, and I'm like, oh, here we go. They last about 20 minutes.
That was it.
And then they kind of got mad at me, and things were never the same again.
What her church group?
Yeah. They just like, no, don't bring them to this. Oh, please.
Yeah, I always tell my parents' friends, I'm like, I know even if you want to be nice, don't. And that's Scotty Spiegel picking up the fingers.
That's it.
I thought maybe you could still reattach him or something. I don't know what the time limit is, but grab him.
Yeah, take him anyways.
I'd grab him.
And Boaz, I remember you had talked about the chainsaw, and, like crawling towards the chainsaw and extending that fight. That was one of the really cool thing that you came up with that just sort of crystallized that whole scene. Because I didn't want it to be like, I wanted the second scene to be more of a fun scene where Josh's torture is just horrible and awful. This one I wanted to feel more actiony.
More
There's a lot
action,
more music.
Because
we've seen. We don't want to sit through that twice.
And you pulled it off too, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, thanks. Well, yeah, it was a tough scene.
The audience is like,
oh, come on, yeah.
Which is a whole different dynamic than it is in the Derek scene.
And then Boaz, you were not. I mean, this was what you referred to as the Monty Python helmet.
Yes, I've still never recovered from this helmet.
Yeah, Boaz is not a fan of the helmet. I like the helmet.
See,
I think it's different.
In Iceland, they all like cheered when he put on a Viking helmet.
I know my audience. I know my audience.
You know, one of the things that I also think you did that I also think you did well was I was real worried about the Russian mafia goons, so to speak, looking like something out of a Steven Seagal film, you know, with the bad ponytails you know, and somehow the way they're all cast in the mix of like real gothic looking kind of Igor guys like this and the way that they're shaved and all that, I think they kind of end up looking kind of classic rather than kind of 80s, you know?
Which I appreciate.
I really think you pulled it off.
Well, I think a lot of that is the fact that when the thugs showed up, they looked like a bunch of fucking high school science professors, and we had to use crew members. Like, that's 2 crew members there. You know, like, this guy came in, Yosef, And he's really a hunchback. I mean, that's
I
the we
said, this
did not-
guy's got the best body language of the entire movie.
Yeah, he just looked like this big kind of loping, he looked like almost like a Star Wars monster, and he couldn't really move. Like we tried to hit him on the head with a sledgehammer, he couldn't fall down, but he was just perfect. And at first the idea was that you were never going to see the butcher's face until the last minute, but then when he came in, it's just like we just started shooting. We're like, how can you not?
How can you
show
not
him?
shoot that? That face is money.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. And this is what Howard Berger termed the trolley of death.
Look.
And there's the hand falling, and this is like the total Scott Spiegel school
Look
of
at that
gore.
shot.
Perspective
Disgusting.
angle.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
I'm still honing my chops, as it were.
Look. Oh, a handbrake.
Oh, why? Scotty.
Sorry.
Fuck
I
that.
I'm laughing at my own jokes.
Quentin Crisp.
Oh,
What the?
what in the heck? This is just oh no, this is really poignant. Actually, this is just so sad.
This is a real kitchen in the mental hospital, and all those meat hooks is real, and that table is the actual table that they had in there for 50 years.
Oh, I could
We
smell
didn't have
it.
to. Oh my God! We were dry heaving because when he turned on that buzzsaw, it smelled so horrible. And this is George Folsey. When I saw George do the pass, it was George's idea to cut the scene to the chops.
Really? Oh, that's
Yeah.
a great touch. I'd never caught that before. That's really a great
And look at his
touch.
mouth; it's like it's been sewn up.
Oh my god.
like that just seems so horrible. Like after he was dead, he sewed his mouth up for some reason, and just the way he threw that. I mean, this guy was.
That gnarly toe by.
I know it starts has a life of its
Yeah,
own.
this is Kevin Wassner was on set. He got he got real meat. It was really disgusting, and I loved like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre feel of this room. It just felt like dirty and grimy, and it was scary down there. And while we were filming this scene, Red Bull sponsored, like they gave us Red Bull for the movie, and they'd have these girls show up in like these tiny Red Bull outfits, these like hot Czech girls, and like the Red Bull girls came down into the set where we had all this meat, and like the guys were like, who wants a Red Bull? And all the guys are like, just salivating. And this is Scotty Spiegel classic, picking up like he's reaching for them. He's
Right, but he only has a few fingers.
yeah, he can't quite get him. He doesn't want to get noticed, and then the butcher gets him.
Oh no! And then they go into the
Too bad. Into the furnace they go.
Out of the frying pan into the fire, something like that. Oh boy.
Yeah, this room smelled so bad. And then the worst part is we had to do some pickup shots the next day, and we went back, and the props guy left the meat in overnight, and it was all rotting, and it just was like, ugh. It was really disgusting. This is the real furnace room there. It's a real old working oven. This hospital was just insane to shoot there.
It's very
This
grim.
guy is just so fucking rules.
Joseph. Do you know what's so funny is he seemed like this big lurch kind of guy, and then like he was like asked if he could take a picture, and we took a photo, and like 2 days later he had like 7 or 8 pictures that he had posted on his website that were going on the internet. I was like, Lurch, you can't do that, man. You got to take these down. He's like giving away like Derek getting killed. That's Roman, our second AD, who we put in the movie about 16 times. And this elevator was actually a set we built. So we're cutting
really?
back from the set. Yeah, the elevator was a set.
Okay,
And we were like
right.
just making that, all the sounds. I mean, this was just on a soundstage, but this was the location at the hospital Bonitza. And that was
He's actually doing a really
prop
good job
master.
of all those.
exactly.
Just as he disappears, they turn around.
Yeah,
the
I was really happy with those guys.
That's really cool.
And then you see the bloody footprints leading to the door. And then we have, the change room, kind of the first moment to catch our breath.
This is definitely probably my favorite scene in the movie when the American businessman comes out, because it really kind of solidifies the moral or lack of moral center of the people participating in this. It makes it modern, and it makes it topical, and it really lets you understand where all this is coming from. And I think the actor did a great job too. He did a great
Rick
job writing the
Hoffman.
Rick
dialogue.
Hoffman, yeah.
And
Thank
the
you.
actor did a great job.
Well, this was one of those scenes where I was just really happy with how it kind of all, now we see the police here and on it, that where it all kind of came together, and just, I remember we were talking, Quentin and we had long discussions about who to cast as the American businessman. And, we weren't sure, and should it be older guy, or should it be younger guy, or slick guy, like, who's going to do it? And then there was, like, at one point, we were like, man, maybe Quentin should do it. But it was like, suddenly, if, like, it would just, we can't have Mike and Tarantino both go to this place. It's like, do only, like, awesome, violent movie directors show up? I'm like, that's not going to help our cause, that we're really nice guys, if we're all just showing up here to torture people.
You could spend all your money.
Yeah.
I'm like living in an apartment
Like
now.
Mike recommended this place to you last time you saw him.
Fucking Mickey told me about this place. It's fucking cool, man.
Well, we credited Mike as himself in the movie. It says Takashi. His name is like Mike Takashi is Takashi Mike. that was the credit.
I think the final choice of making the guy basically a yuppie.
Yeah,
is really
and this was
the
cool
best
too.
choice.
I think did I come up with that
yeah,
tattoo
Scotty.
thing?
The tattoo.
Or
that
did
was
we
that
talk
was no,
about-
that was
I can't
Scotty.
remember.
We were talking about, like, Scott's like, oh, what if, like, you have to get a tattoo to do it, like, to show how committed you are and that you're not going to rat them out, and you get a tattoo and then you're in the club and he's asking, where's your tattoo, and you're like, oh, wait a minute.
I'm not the old Ralph Cramden.
Yeah.
Hum.
Yeah, I think you had the idea of the tattoo and the business. I had the idea that there'd be different prices.
That was cool. It was on the back of the car.
Yeah.
That was
Yes,
cool. I think,
it was.
Oh man.
It was your idea. Yeah.
Oh man.
But again, that's why, like, a movie like this, what makes it, I think, is those little touches. Is everyone with, like, and we all did it because we all wanted to make, it's like it was like not the studio movie. We were just making our own movie, making a movie as violent as we wanted to make it, as sick as, and everyone got to put their own flavor in it, which is what's so much fun.
And you never know quite what to expect.
Yeah.
Yet it still delivers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Rick was really great. I mean, and this is a scene where I was so nervous to shoot it because it was a lot of dialogue. We had a little time to shoot it, and right away he was just he got it.
It's a real fucking rush, right? Come here. I've been all over the world. I've been everywhere. And the bottom line is, pussy's pussy. Every strip club, every whorehouse, it's all the same shit. I just fucked a girl 2 days ago, and I don't even remember the color of her tits. But this is something you never forget, right? Right?
Oh, here's the gun.
Yeah. But I love Jay. Like, Jay, I thought, did a really good job of just, like, trying to keep us cool and being shocked. And there's the tattoo.
Come on, let me see yours.
Oh.
And he's like,
And
what
he just unzips his fly. No, I didn't mean. Horrible.
there was stuff that we had written in about his hands starting to bleed and drip, and, it just sort of took away from this.
Yeah,
weird
actually, I
moment
like
between the two of them.
I mean, it's one of the things I like so much about the script is the fact that you've got all these like legitimate set pieces going on here, but then also you have these big acting scenes like this, or Jay talking German and all the other. And it's like, you walk away talking about these scenes.
What's really cool is a lot of people have told me that this is the scene they find the most disturbing in the movie. I mean, there's the eye-gasm and the legs getting cut off and all that stuff, but this is the scene that people tend to sort of think about, like, because it's just,
But that's what's great though, because it's like, the movie is not just one long line. It's all these ups and downs and like cool character bits.
But like in Psycho, when Norman Bates is talking to Janet Leigh in the parlor with all the stuffed animals, that creeps me out.
Yeah.
And there's nobody getting stabbed in the shower or
Right.
anything. It's just a creepy ass.
yeah. What's
Weird
weird?
ass scene. Ooh.
Well, actually, I think one of the things I think is one of the creepiest things in the whole movie is Jay and Derek showing back up to their room after they think that the hostel thinks they're both gone, and there's two new broads there saying the exact same thing.
Exactly.
The echo.
And you see,
Yeah,
it's
really
a
like
fucking
a-
mousetrap. It's a
Yeah.
fucking
Exactly.
mousetrap, and they've set the whole thing up.
And honestly,
Absolutely.
that was Chris Briggs. I mean, it was Briggs was
That was
so good
cool.
with
That was-
touches like that. And Chris, as we were shooting, Chris is like, "What if he said you're so far from home?" Like, there were little touches that, like, it was great, having him there and set, like, just having everyone just always thinking about, like, how do we maximize every single scene in the movie?
Exactly.
And then you got the keychain with the tattoo, and it's all part of this thing. And this Boaz, remember, we were talking about cutting out the eye. That was something that we were talking about.
Yeah, well,
that you'd come up with.
sometimes the most memorable things come out of what's being already developed in the script. Like, you had her getting her eye tortured, basically, and kind of hanging out, and then she started running around with the eye like that. And I was kind of like, well, Eli, I mean, don't you think it's going to be A, hard to shoot, and B, unrealistic that you'd be able to deal with having her eye out like that? And you're like, well, let's cut it off in this scene. And I was like, oh, that's going to be too hard to watch. And they're like, no, let's go for it. And
Yeah, I
you
remember you
really
said-
came up with one of the most memorable things in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
and
Well, no, you said that.
I
You were
can't
like, what if
believe
he
they
took a
actually let
scalpel?
it in.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And wasn't that the blowtorch, or when he had a blowtorch to cauterize his wounds for his fingers?
We shot
missing?
that. We shot that.
But yeah,
but it felt like he wrapped his hand earlier, and that's
yeah.
like, would he wrap it and then cut her eye out and then blowtorch it? It
I
just
gotcha.
felt like too much.
This is just unbelievably gross.
Yeah, and I thought Jennifer and Jay did a good job of
Yeah.
playing it real.
Me
and
too.
really feeling horrible, and I love, like, again, like, they don't know what they're saying. They just, like, she's screaming in Japanese. He's panicked. He's trying to save her. But I think this is the moment where everyone really starts to really root for Jay when he goes to save the girl.
Actually, this scene has a bit of that great scene in Casualties of War. When the Vietnam girl is like, "Take me away," and Michael J.
Yeah.
Fox trying to explain how he can't, but they can't
Yeah.
understand each other, and it's all panicky, and time is of the essence.
Interesting. Yeah, here it is, the eyegasm. One take, and I can't believe. Thank you.
The absolutely unnecessary pus that qualifies you as a very bad person, Eli.
We love it. Vitreous humor, I think, is the medical term for that.
And Howard and Greg, and it's just the nastiest.
Yeah, K and B did such a great job. Kevin Wassner has been
just
a long
a look
time.
at it. Was that a good idea?
Yeah, I'm like, I don't. But, you know, and look at the smoke. You see the smoke? It's coming out of the chimney. Bob Kurtzman added that. Like, that was really cool as he went through the movie and found every little place to take, like, a digital, like, kind of touch just to punch it up. They did.
Very cool.
And, you know, at the beginning in Amsterdam, it's so controlled and colorful. And here now it's, like, all handheld and it's ash and gray. And, you know, they're in this horrible place. And we didn't have to dress this factory. It's really, really like that.
And then
I
from,
love
like,
I love the outfit Jay's wearing in this scene. He looks like Alain Delon or something in a
62
early
French,
70s
or something
mid 60s film. It makes the movie look kind of timeless and like European cool. It's
Exactly.
really good.
You know?
yeah, he's out of his football jersey.
Yeah, he's in some weird
He's
European.
into the Le Samurai outfit.
It's our on-set dresser, Radon, with a walkie, and, like, two more of our crew guys running after him. But these guys are great. These stunt guys, the bald guy. And
Yeah,
the
these
other
two guys look really. You don't want to mess with those guys.
Yeah.
They
And it's
really.
great. And from this point on, it's a chase movie now.
Yeah, it's weird. You know what? I didn't set out to make a revenge movie or a chase, but it's like as you're doing it, it just sort of, you kind of realize that that's actually what it is, and this is the best way to sort of serve the story. And this was a longer scene we had with him, like, trying to scream, and she was just panicking. But now we're here we are back in Chesky Krumlov, and this was originally like at a stoplight, and this was, I have to thank all three of you guys, were like, run those fucking bitches over.
Yep.
And I remember Quentin read the script, and you're like, you told me, you're missing the audience cheering moment.
Yeah, you're missing. Yeah, this is the audience cheer moment. We need a release.
Right.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah.
And this was like if you don't have them run over the girls, you're robbing the audience of your big cheer moment.
Yeah, and that's what's great about having you guys on board the movie.
And
is
it
that you
does actually get the strongest reaction out of anything in the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think this and the fingers at the end, but this is clearly the moment that everyone wants. I mean, you just...
But and what's great though is you put the sore on the guy's face, so we actually recognize that guy after it seemed like a lifetime has passed.
Yeah, like oh
Immediately.
shit, and there they are, and boom. This stunt girl was fucking awesome. My God, she really hit the cobblestones.
Ouch.
And
Love
Yana,
that shot.
I love that.
And if that wasn't good enough,
yeah, and this is Quentin's idea. I remember that. The fucking thug's car, run him over. Like, yeah. That almost crushed the other stunt guy's head.
Bubblegum.
And here come the bubblegum gang. Now, remember, it was funny because when we were shooting, there was concern that the kids looked too cute, that they didn't look dangerous. And so when we were cutting the movie, we played it that the kids actually are cute and adorable, which makes this scene that much more horrific.
I also think it was really helped by some of the effects that you added in later, where when they're beating the guys, you actually added in digital head crushes. And,
and that's Bob Kurtzman.
You really sold the effect that they had on these bad guys, I think, in a really powerful way.
I wish there was something we could have done with him trying to do the stick with missing fingers. But it would have slowed down the momentum. This is really cool. Check this out.
I mean, one thing that's so cool though is about the fact that if you just had the run over scene and the audience is cheering for that, and then you just right immediately afterwards you're giving him another cheer moment. The
Yeah,
audience is like
cool.
having an orgasm now on the good side. On the good side.
Yeah, man.
Having a gorgasm.
A gorgasm.
And this is Bob Kurtzman, the artist. Dave Matherly did a boom.
Oh, that was great.
And this
They
blood-
did a great job.
These
That was
kids
cool.
fucking love this. They were so happy.
Oh man.
And then this
I
other
love
kid,
this shot. This makes it to me.
That is so cool.
Because, like, you know, that's what the life is worth, a piece of gum. And at the end of the day, they're still kids, you know? That's what I love about that, that's what their currency is. You know, the Japanese girl's 50,000 and the
Yeah.
hooker's 100 euros an hour. And, well, this guy's the price of a bag of bubble gum. That's all your life is worth to these kids. But I remember this was something we talked about where, you know, like what's just the feeling like of him trying to escape and the feeling that everywhere you go, there's just, you're going to get your head crushed in by something like, you know, the police are there, the police are in on it,
and
they're all
corrupt,
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like how ambiguous it is about the fact that we don't know how much the police are involved.
Right.
All right. That one cop was there. For all we know, there's one guy
Right, exactly.
involved, and the police commissioner guy, whoever we talked to, could have just been completely on the up and up. These guys could be on the up and up. You don't know.
Yeah. But they're not about to find out either.
Yeah, I wouldn't find out.
And then this guy on the left, that thug, we called him Bob because of his hair. He was actually a boxer, former boxer and a poet. And he came in the audition and he read some of his Czech poetry to me. And it was a very tender but awkward moment where this like brute is reading his poetry to me. And I was like, I have to cast him now or he'll kill me. But yeah, this was, Scott, you would love this. These boxes, we have this on the DVD. The prop guy decided to put like a made in Slovakia in huge letters in English. And I'm like, I don't think boxes that are made in Slovakia say made in Slovakia on them. This crazy, we had to paint over them.
Oh man.
I thought Jennifer did a really nice job here, kind of realizing.
Yeah, it's
Great moment.
I've actually, from the screening the other night, this is like a couple people brought up that this is one of their favorite moments in the movie, is her seeing herself.
Oh, cool.
And then being able to enable him to escape.
To escape.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought, you know, Jennifer
So
did a good
depressing.
job.
I know,
It's hard
I'm
to
so
act
sad.
with all that, you know, where half your face is covered up with those effects, but I thought she really did a great job.
But the thing is so funny is, you know, it's almost like the scene in Seven about, you know, the girl who dies because of vanity. But I've actually known about 3 girls who've seen the movie and go, yeah, I'd fucking kill myself if I looked like that. What's the fucking point?
There was stuff we'd shot of her and Yuki. They're always checking their hair and always looking in the mirror, but it wound up not making it in the cut. So that sort of played into this a little more. But I still felt like it was bad enough. She figured, what's the point? Plus, she's probably not in her right state of mind.
This
Right.
this is also a green screen shot that looks that manages to look like a stunt.
Yeah, I mean, she jumped, but that's green screen composited. That's real. And no,
I love that.
and by the way, those are the same fire extinguishers filled with blood that they used on Kill Bill.
Ah, there you go. A link.
Yeah, no, it's fun. Like that's what's so great about K&B. To be like, oh man, these are the fire hoses from Kill Bill. They spray blood.
Oh, I'm sure some of those body parts were left over from Kill Bill, too.
Yes, there were Kill Bill body parts and some body parts from Land of the Dead.
Now, this ending is something we should talk about
Yeah,
because there's several versions of it.
Versions.
At varying degrees of darkness, actually. The original version in the script basically had Jay Hernandez discovering that the Dutch businessman was with his beloved daughter, and in a terrible act of revenge, he killed the Dutch businessman's daughter and then fled the scene, leaving the Dutch businessman weeping over the death of the only thing he loves. On set, you decided that was too intense.
yeah. I just couldn't believe that Jay Hernandez would slit a
Yeah,
6-year-old.
and you came up- you came up
Nobody
with-
wanted to see that.
You came up with a solution that I thought was actually really interesting, which was a kind of ambiguous ending, which is, I guess, on one of the DVD versions of the film.
Eventually, yeah. it's not
Eventually, will be
this
on one of the DVD versions of the film where Jay Hernandez actually kidnaps the Dutch businessman's daughter, and you don't know what's going to happen to her at the end of the film, and it's very, very morally ambiguous, and that's really my favorite of the endings. But as we were making the film with a studio at the end of the day, and reactions to the film were pretty varied along as to how people felt about that, we ended up going back and shooting a much more kind of revenge-oriented ending.
Well, I actually prefer this ending, and it's interesting because I didn't think that I would. What I love about this ending is that what I realized is that we had set up like there's such a language of violence in this movie, and every revenge is paid off so viscerally and so violently that you want to see the girls get it and those bitches get run over, and you want to see the thugs die and they get their fucking heads crushed in, and everyone you want to see die, the German surgeon who's torturing Jay with a chainsaw gets shot in the head, everyone you want to see die just gets it. So we've basically cock teased the audience and got them so right that the person you want to see die the most, they are so expecting a bloodbath. And what I did was I gave them a psychological twist. And I think that there were 10% of the audience thought it was great, but everyone else was like, but what? But they were just totally thrown by the fact that there wasn't blood.
I have to say, watching it with an audience and also myself, feeling a little, just a little not, like you've jerked me off and you haven't allowed me to come.
Yeah, and that was the studio's point. It's like, you got him hard, you got him hard, you got him hard, and they're like, thanks, go home. Whereas here, the moment when he starts cutting these fingers,
I can't stop it.
Chris Nelson did such a great
Oh,
face.
yeah.
Oh, Chris rocks,
God.
man.
And I think
Chris
the
is the
moment,
man.
and the
He's
moment-
also the groom, too.
Yeah, the groom. And the moment he kicks in the door here, and this was
Yeah.
a scene that I really had time
The
to shoot.
kick in the
right.
door. Oh, that's my
That
favorite
was my-
part.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
my
glad you
favorite
like that. I
part.
love that too.
And drowning it, and Jay just
That
looks
reminds
possessed.
me of in Psycho 2 when he takes the shovel.
Oh, yeah,
It's
exactly.
exactly
Yeah,
reminds
I
me
mean,
of
for
that.
me, the moment when he looks and sees the reflection, and it's the callback to Josh that gets revenge on the fingers. He makes sure there's
Oh,
a
I
teeth
love
on
the
the
fact
ground.
that you go all the way back to the very end and at the fucking toilet seat cover thing, no less.
Yeah, and right there, it's like reminiscent of exactly
I love
how
that shot,
Josh.
obviously. That's great.
Yeah, K and B doing that awesome neck and the blood, the head in the toilet.
I just thought you needed the toilet POV with the blood going in.
Yeah.
That's
Face is
Scotty
swirling.
Spiegel.
Scotty shot.
Oh no, the finger
But
again.
this I love. Yeah,
Watch
we had
this.
some.
Oh, that's great though.
Awesome shot at
That's
the beginning.
awesome.
Yeah, and I like the idea that he leaves. I mean, I shot him picking up the fingers and taking them like he was going to use them himself, but it just kind of cheapened the moment. And just
Oh
felt
man,
like-
if we could have CGI'd some red blood coming through the card. You know what I'm saying? Just
Yeah.
like
that's all right.
From
I
the
still like
center.
it
But no,
floating.
it's great. You did.
I kind of like it
job.
floating on the thing.
Yeah.
No, it's great. It's awesome. It's really creepy and eerie, gross.
And it just was all George Folsey wanted the whole shoot was a shot. What if he just pulled away and we just craned up, and then we did
it's-
it, and I'm like, that's
it.
Feels like the end of the movie. It feels like the right.
Very cool. Yeah. Bully.
So-
Yes.
There you have it. So yeah, I mean, it's weird. I think testing is a very weird, strange, horrible thing, and I think that people give way too much. See, Miike Takashi is Takashi Miike.
Well, I'm excited people are going to hopefully get a chance to see both versions.
Yeah.
I think that's really great.
Yeah,
That'd really be cool.
I mean, I love it too. But you could feel the difference in the audience.
Sir Robert, wait, what?
I think jerking people off and not letting them come is its own interesting quality to it.
I would agree with that, except if it wasn't the last moment of the movie.
Yeah.
But actually, the thing about it is, to me, the ending. If you were going to go with it, you got to go with him killing the girl. Yeah. And I don't buy he would kill the girl now that I've got to know the character.
I just can't see Jay Hernandez doing that.
Yeah.
I don't care.
And the ambiguous one, if he's not killing her, if he's just saving her, that wasn't enough for me.
Yeah.
I like to think that maybe he is going to kill her, but then I watched it with a bunch of people and go, no, there's no way that guy's going to fucking kill that girl.
Yeah, well, as George would say, it's neither fish nor fowl. It's like not here or there. It's not. It's like if you're going to commit to it, do it.
That is a good Georgeism. Do it like George. Say it.
I just think it's neither fish nor fowl. Neither fish nor fowl.
You can't see him do George's face when he does his finger
George
stabs.
Folsey. I gotta get George in on the commentary. Just he's edited so many great blaxploitation movies. That Quentin loved produced so many great horror movies. American Werewolf in London, Trading Place. It was such an honor to work with him.
JD's Revenge, Bucktown.
Yeah, it was so fun. But I wanted the movie to feel like a classic movie. I wanted it to have the classic orchestral score and not have like MTV style editing or any of that flashy shit. I wanted it to feel like a classical type film.
I have to say, I was kind of taken aback because I hadn't noticed before, but you're right. That was so cool. George cutting to the chomps.
The chops.
That was so
well, that's
groovy.
good that you didn't notice it.
Yeah, I
That
never
means
noticed it,
Yeah,
yeah.
it means that you're in the story, which is really cool. But yeah, I don't know. The most fun thing for me You know, I tell everybody that I took like less of a paycheck on this than I did on Cabin Fever. I just like we all did this for the love.
William
of
Holden Theater.
We did.
William Holden is credited in the movie.
I know. William Holden as a credit. We mixed it on the
Stephanie
whole.
Powers says, "God damn it!"
Yeah. Yeah, they let us
my
mix on the
God.
Holden stage, which is where they did Spider-Man. It's just like one of the biggest stages at Sony, and that's where the studio was great. You know, they put in like another $750,000 just into the sound. So, see that courtesy of Quentin Tarantino, Miramax.
There you go.
Films.
Very fancy.
And Sex Fever. The other movie he's watching on the little TV is the porn version of Cabin Fever, Sex Fever.
You used
Cool.
to date that director.
No, I don't know about that. We went out for sushi once. I don't know if it qualifies as my dating her.
For sushi, eh?
Yeah, for sushi. She invited me to sushi, and we went out to sushi, and she told me what it was like to shoot an anal gangbang. It was good times. Good times.
Wow.
And now everybody in the world knows that.
You gotta be putting me on, man.
Thanks. Well, thanks you guys for joining. And
Thanks,
thank you
man.
everyone at home.
Awesome.
Bye-bye, all you out there in TV land.
Bye everybody in TV land.
Good heavens.
Bully, I say.
Good
On
night
Earth.
and God bless.